Welcome to another episode of
The
The
planner's
Planner
suite.
Suite.
Oh, we wasn't really ready. I
Welcome to another episode of The
the
Planner
planner's
Suite.
suite.
So, one episode that we like to keep recurring is why you need a planner. And while we would love to work with you, there are so many other planners to work with. We just want you to get a planner,
Yeah,
period. Like,
absolutely.
and so every time we talk about that, we'll kind of highlight on a certain reason why you need a planner. So today we're going to be talking about you need a planner to help build out your day.
Yeah, like you need a planner to help build out an itinerary. I have personally seen itineraries for people who have not planned weddings before, and the things that are on the itinerary aren't really important. It's like who is setting up the croissants in the morning, who is making sure, like the things are just so minute when they need to be focused on who's getting their makeup done and what time is transportation coming, how long does it take to get from the hotel to the venue. So just making sure you have someone to really build out your itinerary to the T and really know how logistics work.
Right. And when you don't have a planner, a lot of times when we find that people do their own weddings, they may not even create an itinerary.
Yeah.
And that's when you're not getting in your important details that you want to do. You may not be getting in um, your garter toss or something that you want to do that's important to you. Maybe your dance with your kids, because you're squeezing in things, but there's no schedule to follow.
Right,
You're just
right.
going with the flow. And when it comes to a wedding, you can't just go with vibes.
You
Like,
can't. You can't. You can't just be like, yes, on wedding day, I'm just gonna, good vibes only. Like I'm just gonna go with it. Like you can miss pictures with important family members, a whole lot of things, and even little things like jumping the broom or
yeah,
cultural traditions. I'm from West Africa, and in our culture, we do a lot of different things in our wedding. And if you don't have an itinerary, you're gonna be at that venue all night. Literally. So it's really, really important to make sure you're capturing those
and I'm
different things.
thinking back to your itinerary, it was so detailed, like even to the minute. But we had to have those buffers in it as well. Like those buffers are important because things go wrong. That's just what happens. Things always go wrong. So including those buffers. Just thinking about our itinerary, what are some major things that you think we put on there that are very important? Or maybe even our thought process when working through our itinerary.
I think what kind of blows our couples away the most is the makeup and hair schedule.
Yeah.
It seems a lot. It seems really easy, but it's a lot more complicated than you think. That bridesmaid A can't be in the hair and makeup chair at the same time. So that, and another thing too, just like little details, like okay, Grandma Pat is doing the blessing. What table is she at? In a room of 500 people, 300 people, 150, running around trying to figure out who gets the mic. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Or you're on
significant.
the mic like, Grandma Pat, please come to the front.
Yeah.
One, that's taking up time. Two, that's a little bit tacky. Uh,
Yeah.
and like three, it just messes up the flow of the wedding. Like
Right,
if it's
right.
there on the paper, we know, we see, we know what to do. There's a sense of organization. Um,
Yeah, another big thing as well is just your food selections with your guests. So one thing that we do here at Amy Cynthia Events is um, we create an Excel table of how many like chicken, salmons are at table one, table three. Like that's a detail. If you're not a wedding planner, you're not doing that. And the vendors love it. Like the caterers love it. So that's a nice detail to put in your itinerary as well.
Right. So for me, I like having everyone's contact information in one place. Their contact information, what time they're arriving. Because for me, I'm looking at the itinerary, I'm looking at my watch, I'm like, okay, it's 11 a.m. and the photographer isn't here. I need his number, but then I'm not just like in my phone looking for it. It's right there on the itinerary.
Right.
And that's something that you wouldn't even think of if you weren't doing this all the time, if you weren't a planner. And I understand, I always understand people wanting to do their own wedding. We talked about that previously. People say, I've been in weddings, I know what to do, I know how to handle this, but they don't think about those details. They don't think about the buffers. They don't think of how tying it all together. But as planners, we understand that we've experienced it. We know how much time you need for that first dance. We know how much time you need for the blessing. We know how much time you need for pictures. Pictures are a major thing on the itinerary because
Oh,
it can go on for hours.
yes.
You're looking for people, you're calling people. So and so already went to the back. You're running to the back and grabbing people. But if you have a shot list, you have that schedule, you're like, okay, we have 15 minutes left to do this. We still have this many people to take pictures with. That really just makes the time concise. Make sure you're using your time in the best way. And just when you're not a planner in this role doing this all the time, you don't think of that. You're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so a planner comes in and helps to tie it all together and to just bring it
Hold
all.
those vendors accountable.
Yeah.
Like to the photographer, you have 5 minutes, you have
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes, kind of like holding them accountable in that sense.
Right.
And another thing, I'm just gonna plug in a little thing. That's the best part about watching the planner suite is we're always gonna plug something in.
Yes.
If you're getting married and you don't have a planner, something to help you with your photos is for your ceremony and your reserved seating, instead of putting a reserved sign, put a reserved sign with your family member's name on it and put a note at the bottom that says, "Hey, I would love to have a photo with you after the ceremony. Meet at this location."
Mm-hmm.
So it's at their seat so that instead of them running away and then we have to find them and we
Yes.
don't know who Uncle John is. Like, we don't know who
Auntie
he is.
Bam Bam.
Auntie B, Britta, like we don't know
Right.
who they are. So put it on their seat so they know exactly where to go. And I promise you, you'll be able to get photos with all of your loved ones.
Right. And so if this is overwhelming for you, please reach out to a planner, reach out to us. If you find that we're not a good match for you, we can recommend so many other
Yeah.
planners for you. Overall, we just want this process to be smooth. We want you to get the most out of your day. We want to make sure everything is running efficiently. So hire a planner.
Yeah, absolutely. Hire a planner. If you're thinking about not hiring a planner, just date them. Whitney says that all the time. Date them. Date
My
your
favorite
planners.
line.
Get a glass of wine. Pour your fiance, a glass of bourbon or wine, whatever that is, and date your planner. Date different planners and see who works for you and who doesn't, but definitely don't rule one out.
So, when talking about planners, I think it's also important to know who you're hiring. There's venue planners, there's full planners, and there's a major difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a huge difference between a venue planner and then someone who is just a full service wedding planner. So I think that we should get into this because this is very cringy. And I hate to say this is when, a bride, reaches out to come to a consultation and they say, I mean, all of the services you're telling me is great, but the venue has a coordinator. And I'm like, oh my God, should I tell them? Should I tell them? Like, should I tell them really
It's like,
the
should I
truth?
hurt their feelings right now?
Yeah. And the reality is the venue does not care about anything else but the venue.
Right.
They're not going to coordinate anything for you outside of what takes care of their home, their little family. But what we care about is we care about everything. We care about the whole village.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm not saying to rule them out. Some venues do a really, really great job, but we're going to break down why we think that it's a good idea to consider a full service wedding planner. And then also still keep your venue coordinator, but it's almost like the two of them can make magic together.
Right. And I think we also talked about that detail piece as well with our itineraries when building out our itineraries. We have that knowledge and that background. A lot of times when venue planners are in those roles, they come from a hospitality background. So they know about the space, they know about the venue, but they don't know all the full details that a full wedding planner would have. I think that's a major thing too.
Yeah, that's huge. And I'm just going to tell a story. We actually did a wedding this past weekend. There was a venue coordinator and there was me. We had a scenario where the rental company came and they just didn't have enough people to unload the truck. And I mean, it was 200 chairs, tables, it was all of this stuff. We noticed time was getting really tight. I hopped on the truck. I was unloading the stuff off the truck because for me, those details matter.
Right.
I planned those details with that bride. I knew her family and friends were showing up in an hour and 15 minutes. And if those details didn't come off that truck, what were we going to do? Where the venue only cared about placing the tables that were in the space and having the linen on them, but not everything else.
Right. And with the full planner, I feel like we just care more because it's a reflection of who we work for in your business. Whereas like the venue planner, it's like, oh, well, those vendors, I don't have anything to do with them. That's on them. The
Right,
space
right.
is nice, the space is clean, the space is set up. That was
Yeah.
on the vendor, where it's like, oh, we hired the vendor, we contracted the vendor, we recommended the vendor. Let me get on this truck and get these chairs off.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. And I think it starts from the beginning, right? So your venue coordinator, they're not going to contact your vendors for you 2 hours before. A lot of times that itinerary doesn't go to them before. They're not calling those vendors and saying, hey, do you need anything? You know, what could make this better? Scheduling meetings if you need it. So there's a lot to consider. And also, let's talk about this. I'm going to bring this up, and it's a little different than a venue coordinator and a wedding planner. But can we talk about bridal attendants and maitre d's and what the difference is? Because your wedding planner is not supposed to be there to, I mean, lift up your dress every 2 seconds,
Right.
get you iced coffee. That is a different service.
So you mentioned that on a previous episode, and we did get a few DMs about that, about like what is a bridal attendant. So yeah, definitely
Okay.
break that down. And
Yeah, so a bridal attendant is actually just like a separate person that it literally attends to the bride. So they're there with them while they're taking photos, fixing their dress, they're helping them getting their dress, giving them champagne, they're wiping the sweat off your forehead if you need it. That is your bridal attendant, right? And sometimes people confuse that with a wedding planner. They think that your wedding planner is also supposed to do those things. But a lot of times, I will say, venues come with a bridal attendant. And that is something that is really attractive. So you're getting a bridal attendant and you're getting someone that just cares about the venue, but not everything else. Now, there are a lot of companies and planning staffs that do have bridal attendants now. So I will say that that's something
That's
that we
nice.
have considered
Yeah.
adding. I know Society 1111 in the Richmond, Charlottesville area, they add on bridal attendant services and they do hair and makeup. So that is kind of awesome thing that you can add on. But I mean, if you're interested in it and you want to have a bridal attendant and a planning staff, reach out to us. Maybe we'll
Right.
add that. We'll add
Right.
additional staff. It's definitely something we do, but it's really hard for a planner to be the planner and work on your logistics and your timeline and also be there fluffing the dress. Like, we can't fluff the dress and make sure everyone's in for entrances at the same time.
Right. If we get enough of y'all that DM us and tell us y'all want bridal attendants, we may add it.
Yeah, yeah.
But y'all got to tell us y'all want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot more to unpack in this. So maybe we could turn a venue planner versus full planner, full service planner into a full episode. But for now, I think that was enough to unpack of why you need a planner for this
Right.
week.
And if you have any other questions, just reach out to us. We have recommendations. We have people we can send you to. But for now, that's it at the Planner Suite.
Yep.
And we'll
guys
see you next
week.
time.